Welcome to episode 9 of Dungeon Crawl Talk Soup. In this episode, I talk with my friend Chad about all things cyberpunk. Movies, books, comic books, music. I mean everything. And no fear hiatus this episode. Enjoy. In case this is your first time watching Dungeon Crawl Talk Soup, my show is one part podcast with my friends, one part perilous permadeath gaming challenge. Mostly I chat with my friends about a topic they love, but rarely get the chance to talk about at length, but at the same time, I'm trying to get my first win at Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. The catch is, if my character dies, the episode ends. Hope you enjoy the show. But anyway, Neuromancer is great. So I read that earlier this year. I loved it, and you have those awesome figures in your in your room.
Yeah, I do. I love.
Can you send me pictures of your Neuromancer figures so I can slice them into the episode?
Absolutely. I made some custom Neuromancer, like 12-inch figures or 6-scale figures. Thanks, man. Awesome. Yeah. Since you've been here, I think I actually have RoboCop now in the collection as well. But
I'll take that picture too.
A couple other things. Yeah, I'll take some pictures. But yeah, what I was saying is I would argue that, and William Gibson has a quote that's really good. William Gibson, the author of Neuromancer, he said something like, "The future is already here; it's just not evenly distributed."
Absolutely. Okay, that's a real current events AI thing too.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's really interesting about Cyberpunk, right? Like, it's got so much tangentiality to current life.
Well, it's all. I think it's rooted in the human, like the idea of human relationship with technology, and it touches everything from romance to education, the way we communicate, the way we even look at each other, right?
Yeah.
And see pictures of each other. It's like so pervasive, and so it's like, is it really futurism now? Like, I think back in the 60s and 70s during the new wave sci-fi movement, it was definitely rooted in futurism. If you think about this idyllic future, right?
Yep.
But I think cyberpunk is it's near future now, or if not,
totally.
I mean, you've seen that proliferation happen. I have one example for you that it's pretty evident of this. Remember when we had cell phones and no one had them, and now homeless people have cell phones?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, the proliferation of technology is where the end game is here, and we're so hyper obsessed with attention gathering and consumerism and instant gratification through communication that we're there.
Yeah, totally. There's a pin. There is a AI that you can wear on your shirt now. A humane pin, and it's just an AI that walks around with you and answers questions for you. Bing style, right there, live with you in person.
Wow!
They just announced this recently.
You don't even need a brain anymore.
No.
Literally.
But my point is simply that it's very pervasive.
There.
Yeah, and
it's right next to your soul.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think do you think of things in the cyberpunk I don't know, genre or mythos that you have experienced that we're still very, very far away from?
Well, okay, so two things. One, let me draw a very important distinction, because I think so far we haven't actually talked about cyberpunk. We've only talked about the technology, right?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
And so if you think, how does that come to life? I think there are elements of that in modern day, hacking groups, hacktivists, things like that, where it's kind of this is happening right now. Are you asking, is there a seminal work that I always reference as the primo example of what cyberpunk is?
What I was asking is there a specific thing that pops out to you as being a technology that you think is cool part of cyberpunk that's that we're just not anywhere near? So much of it, like you said, is not that far in the distant future.
Yeah, I think you know what? I don't think we're quite at the level. Did you ever see Altered Carbon or read any of that? Have you ever read that or watched it? Are you
No,
familiar with it?
what's I know a
Yep.
little bit of it. It's
Okay,
cloning,
I
right?
can I can. It's yeah. So basically, the idea is like your personality exists in this needle, and they can cast it to different planets, and then they inject you into different sleeves. So you're basically like you don't have a corporeal form anymore. You are just a personality on a disc that transitions between uh, different vessels, and older people back up uh, their memories, I guess, and the super rich can afford to have multiple copies of them at different points in their life.
Oh, I see.
And I don't think we're at the point where we can hard copy people's minds onto a. Well, you know what? I think we're at a point to there, but I'm not sure about injecting it and removing that from a body.
Totally.
Honestly, though, if we copied someone's personality, like, and put it into a machine, I mean, I don't think we're that far from that either, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
it sounds
Now that
like
I think
that.
about it,
So that's
like
why I asked the
I
question the
can't
way that
think
I
of
did.
anything.
I was
Yeah,
like, it's
like wait, no,
incredible
that's not true.
how
We're
close
almost
we are
there.
to possibly all these things,
Yeah.
happening. I
Hmm.
wonder, and that makes me wonder who can even propose things that are still, wildly futuristic. The way that, as you said, in the early parts of this genre, they were saying things
Mm.
that were wildly futuristic when Neuromancer came up in the '80s, right? Like that
Yeah.
was still 40 years ago. So,
Yeah.
um,
But what
okay,
coincided with was with that movement, you got to remember, was also the punk movement.
okay. So let's talk
And
about that
so,
side of this
yeah.
specific genre. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would say like some of the hallmark tenets of the genre would be the rebellious spirit and rebellious use of technology, right?
Yep. I
But the
love that phrase.
rebellious,
I never heard it used
yeah.
before. You just brought it up a few minutes ago.
Oh, really? Okay. Um, and the rebellious spirit of the punk rock movement,
Of
obviously,
course.
emerging through the same era, like characterized by anti-establishments, like you know, even globally, like Sex Pistols to Ramones to
Yep.
like Clash and things like that. So like, you know, if you think about how that spirit was being ignited, marrying that with technology was natural, and the stories that came out of that, the whole cyberpunk genre came out of that early '80s, uh, I guess, fascination or stories centered around anti-heroes or like marginalized individuals who were, putting their middle finger up to the corporations or the system, and using their technological skills to challenge, I guess, the status quo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's so many cool themes in there too: alienation, identity, the human condition. I think I was talking about a lot of those things before, but I to the question before, I think we, and it's just so ingrained with the genre. Like punk is just so ingrained with the genre as well. Even the fashion, like you could have a whole conversation
Absolutely.
around um, how fashion has been incorporated into these things too. Um,
I think the
and just
fashion
like,
is super critical to cyberpunk.
yeah,
It's such a big cornerstone of what makes it interesting and unique, and
yeah,
but it also speaks to exactly what you're saying of the counterculture of it,
yeah.
um, of the whole thing. Do you think
But
that the early so it's not, that was going to be a dumb question. I was going to say, do you think that the early writers in the genre or creators in the genre were anxious to demonstrate that punk side of it, or were they just? I guess I was gonna ask, were they just like taking advantage of it? But they were like punks trying to speak their own language
oh yeah,
through
yeah,
novelization or through comic books or through film.
yeah. So there's a couple other authors that are really big: Bruce Sterling, um, and Walter John Williams, who is he wrote a book called Hardwired that around that time, and they were all like, yeah, they were all influencing each other, but yeah, they were tapping into the counterculture elements that you were referencing within sci-fi. So it was kind of like a post new wave sci-fi movement towards that was focused more on rebellion.
Yeah,
But yeah, even like William Gibson is also a big like fashion person as well, and reading through his books, you'll just see a lot of references to uh, a lot of like fashion, Japanese fashion, sunglasses, mirror shades, shit like that.
yeah.
And it's just part of like a lot of it is just stylistic technobabble. I mean, like think about some of the company names that came out of just that novel. Microsoft actually that the name of Microsoft came from that novel.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
it did.
awesome.
Yeah. So there's like little things like that, or even the Matrix and like words like
Oh,
that,
of
or the
course.
internet. Yeah. Um, So yeah, I think, but it's again that stuff all started as just technobabble. It doesn't mean anything, and that's kind of funny. It's kind of like f you technology people. Like we can name things whatever we want.
It does speak to that there's a lot of like Silicon Valley people who
Yeah,
in their youth like grew up in this stuff and tried to be
totally.
something different, and a lot of them are the corporate overlords now, but
Yeah.
they they
Why do you
came
think
up
they named
inside
it
of this.
Microsoft,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
they
Yeah,
got the name from the novel.
right, totally.
But yeah, I mean, I think you see like there was a magazine in the 80s called Omni Magazine, and that's where a lot of these property or these short stories started. So, have you heard of Johnny Mnemonic?
Yes, I love that film. It's a
Okay,
book too or something, right?
okay. Well, let's go
Let's go
there for a
get
second.
into it.
Let's
Yeah,
go there for a second. Yeah. So obviously Keanu Reeves is amazing, and but he's always Johnny, right?
yep.
Um, but yeah. So Johnny Mnemonic was a short story first, but the movie pulled a lot of stuff from Neuromancer, and actually one of the characters in Johnny Mnemonic, the girl lead, who is like kind of a badass edge runner type.
What was
She
her
was
name?
in. I can't remember her name, but she was inspired by Molly Millions
Oh,
from
I'm sorry. I
Neuromancer.
meant the other way. I thought you were saying the Neuromancer character is Molly. Yeah.
Yeah, Molly. Yeah, I think she might have even been named Molly in Johnny Mnemonic. I can't remember, but uh, anyway, yeah. So that directly like that pulled a ton of stuff from a lot of like seminal sci-fi things, including dolphins being able to like speak with these machines on their head and crazy shit like that. It's
That's
like,
crazy. I forgot about that. That's such a
yeah,
great
right.
part.
Yeah, and I think yeah, who Henry Rollins was in that movie as well as like uh, this tech doctor who could like enhance your body and stuff, and it was just a wildly amazing movie. But yeah, all of that stuff just came from like these crazy short stories where these guys were like, what if people used the same technology we were looking at like Star Trek and used it to like fight against oppression or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not necessarily fight against oppression, although I guess they kind of did, but it's sort of like live outside of the existing oppression. So that's one of the
Yeah,
things I think is interesting about
yeah,
cyberpunk
that's
is
a good
that
way to put it.
there is sort of a not an anti-establishment, but a like accepting of the horrific, like entrenchment of
Hmm.
corporate, of corporate leadership over all of us,
Yeah.
and that's essentially real.
Yep.
And
Yep.
these people live in that, but then they're just like, but I'm gonna figure out ways to go around it and fight my way past the
Hmm.
ice and all the like
Hmm.
cybersecurity that these people have, and it's really fun to watch the heist movie essentially, because that's what that Neuromancer is, right? It's
Yeah.
essentially a heist movie,
Yeah.
but it or a
Stray Light
heist, but
Run.
yeah, but it's but it's in a cyberpunk world.
But yeah, and that's the application of the ideas as well. And I think that's also, I mean, corporations, government, even going further than that. Like one of my favorite games of all time is Deus Ex, and that explores like what do we know is in front of us is actually real and not being manipulated by the shadows, the things that lurk in the shadows, the authority that lurks in the shadows, the Illuminati, right?
Yep.
So I kind of love that idea that of like we're so wrapped up and wrapped around being controlled that we don't even know what's happening, and that's kind of cool, like cool and scary idea as well. But all of that anchors in yeah this technological integration or incorporation with like man versus machine, and that enable us to be manipulated because we've given up too much of our humanity? And I think that's a really cool question.
Yes. Tons of great philosophical questions for us to continue to cross paths with. But I'm going to
Yeah,
interrupt you just for a moment for you to
let's do it.
choose another potion or choose another scroll to
Yep.
read
Well,
or
I was
drink.
looking at this D because it has a funny word in the second word, and I was like, I like that. It's
Tito, Titi,
Tito,
it's almost Titi.
Tito's.
It's almost
Yeah,
Titi. Okay,
I
that's
think
cool.
these Titos will give you big old hittos. So
All
let's
right,
do
let's
that
go.
one.
Boom.
Yep.
Scroll of blinking. Those are great. Those are good end game scrolls.
Teleport kind of thing?
It's like teleporting,
Yeah.
but it's random and it's immediate. The teleport scroll is not immediate. It takes 3 or 4 turns to kick in, and it goes much further away than the blink does. I'm sorry, I had that backwards. The teleport is random. The blink, you get to choose where you go to. The problem is that if this amulet again is helping us a lot, but I probably won't be able to teleport using it, so I'll have to take it off at some point.
I
Okay.
see.
So,
Okay, cool.
So I want to
one.
squeeze in a quick conversation about Deus Ex because you brought that up. I have never played it. Tell me what's awesome about Deus Ex. Besides, I guess the genre itself is great, but I've never played it. Yeah, tell me why.
Yeah, the game genre in itself, it's one of the first what I would consider immersive sims. So if you think of like games like Skyrim, Fallout, Thief, like any games that have like very interactable environments, things like that, but also choice and consequence.
Right.
That is one thing that Deus Ex does really well, and to this day, a lot of game developers don't really do. And I think that idea of choice and consequence lends really well to the overarching theme of Cyberpunk, because it almost calls into question like. So basically, the plot is around this organization that's creating this street drug, and is trying to basically control humanity through its distribution and things like that. But it's a heavily like dystopian society. It is, I don't know. It's just a very deep plot line with a lot of twists and turns and things that you wouldn't get out of a typical game, especially for that time. And it also had like a lot of choice and consequence in the way that you approach situations too.
What platform was it originally?
Yeah, so it came out on PlayStation, or sorry, not PlayStation, PC first, but then they did eventually release it for other platforms as well.
Oh, okay, so it was PC first.
Yep, exactly, yeah. And so yeah, it's kind of cool because like the plot isn't really like it's more around like supply and demand of a certain drug. There's a synthetic drug here called ambrosia in the game that this company manufactures, and they're controlling the supply of that to manipulate people through the virus.
Those bastards.
Exactly. Yeah, I won't spoil the plot for anybody who hasn't played it, but
it's a 20-plus-year-old game.
Yeah, I know, but if somebody hasn't heard of it, I don't want to. And then
That's true.
They had a few other games after that were prequels that explored a little bit more the themes around like what it means to be human. There was like an anti-augmentation movement against humans who were augmenting themselves to enhance their performance and whatever, their day-to-day lives. So there's always this like flirtation with the idea of humanism and humanity and where the limits of that are, which is another theme I think that's really cool.
We're going to take on this troll.
Do it.
A little bit stronger than us.
I think you got him.
I got him. Oh, wow.
You didn't even take a single hit.
I took a teeny tiny hit, but
did you?
Basically nothing.
It was 1 pixel.
Yes, okay, so now we're going to do axes and get that up to 16. Oops. I think I need to get to 16 for min delay. 18 for min delay, which is 1.3. No, wait, I'm at 1.3. I need to get to 0.7 so that I'm just absolutely crushing everybody. 0.7 means I'll hit,
once
3 times
every
per 2 turns.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So...
And it's flaming, right?
It's a flaming, so that's going to be really good later if I get that far. Because it is... it's important to have a flaming weapon for when you run into Hydra. Because if you don't have a flaming weapon...
Their heads grow back?
Their heads grow back twice as many, and then they just absolutely eat you. Okay, so I need to set...
That would definitely be the end of the run.
Yes, it would. If they ate me, that would be the end of the run. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put on this on high. Then we'll add a little bit of... we're going to add a little bit of armor as well. I think that the very good players of this game recommend not training 2 things at once. But you know what? Fuck that.
Uh-oh. We're going off script.
Going off script. So, we've also crossed... well, I do have areas you want to take us to? Because I want to try to lead you places, but I want to make sure that you
There's
you
one
seem to
of
have some ideas you wanted to
for
cover.
there's one other thing I wanted to chat about, and that's like Blade Runner, one of my favorite.
So that's what I read that's another one I read this year. Those are the two I
Yeah,
read this year.
so I found actually was reading about Blade Runner a few weeks ago. I've read it. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is
Right,
the
of course.
original book. Philip K. Dick. Um, I apparently when Philip K. Dick was researching The Man in the High Castle,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember this. He was going through some like German soldiers' journals, and he came across an entry of this soldier who was writing about how annoying it was that children, or how upset he was that children were crying, keeping him up at night. And he went on to say it wasn't because of the guilt that he felt, but because it was a nuisance.
Yeah.
And so Philip K. Dick read that, and he's like, "What would it feel like to be someone who's completely devoid of empathy,
Right.
someone who's completely unfeeling?" And that's the idea of the android came from that journal entry from a World War II Nazis journal. And
That's
I
incredible.
think, yeah. And you read the book this year.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think?
I thought it was great. I thought that the comedic elements of it, the sheep, actually the sheep part, right, is,
Yeah.
Super, and super fascinating, and the religious guy that like teaches you to keep pushing up the hill to which is again another allegory to the hopelessness of living in a corporate owned universe.
Yeah, I think that's a good read on it for sure.
Is like that stuff was super fascinating, not in the movie, right? Like very different from the movie in those senses, and that was really great.
100%.
And I really love there was absolutely a 10-page, 15-page section in the middle where I was like, it's specifically when he runs across the other Blade Runner, and
Yep.
then he gets arrested, and he's being questioned, and they're about to do the void conf on him, where I felt a level of drama and fear and suspense of her, like, wait, I'm fairly, like, I was like, they're gonna find out that he's about to find out that he's the replicant.
Yeah.
And
I think
and then it just flips so fast in that room, in that page, that it's like, I had to reread that like multiple times. I think
I remember exactly what you're talking about.
I just find that to be such a hard thing to accomplish in a book, where it's just like, wait, I mean, we just talked about this last episode with Kelly of like, wait, did I just read that? Is that right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
am I for sure that this is the way this is going down? I thought that part was absolutely fantastic. I loved it.